All right. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Absolutely. All right. We're back. So last time we left off with like a 20-minute story on how you snuck onto a movie. Was it a film or a show?
It was a show.
Okay.
It was HBO Lovecraft Country.
Okay. And how did that turn out?
I don't think I was on it.
No.
I never even watched it because it came out so long after the actual filming happened that my excitement kind of fizzled off by then. And then my mom watched it.
Did she?
And she said she didn't see me.
Oh,
so
no.
I never even got around to watching it, surprisingly.
So did you pick up a career as a extra, or was that just a one-time thing? You're like, this isn't for me.
I did. I don't know if I had done it at the time yet when we filmed did the last podcast, but I did Chicago Fire, Chicago Med, and Chicago PD.
What was that like?
It was fun.
Okay.
It was really cool to do it legit, and actually belong there, so you weren't afraid to get kicked out at any minute.
So when you walked in, what is the process? Do they put out an ad and you're like, yes? Like, how do you even show up?
It's actually pretty easy.
Okay.
So for anyone that's listening that's interested, for the Chicago ones, you just go on their Facebook page. And this was a couple years ago, so the process might have changed a little, but they post what they're looking for. And most of the time, since it's extras, they're looking for anybody.
Gotcha.
But they'll be descriptive sometimes with the specific roles or like height and weight, whatever. But,
gotcha. Okay.
They make the post, and then you pretty much just email them pictures of yourself and some of your info, and then if they want you, they send you the information and pretty much when to show up and what to bring.
That's hilarious. Just Facebook Messenger, like, I'll show up.
Yeah.
So when you get to these scenes, is it at a studio? Is it outside? Like, where was the first couple ones you did?
There's the first one I did, it was at some weird, it was like an abandoned school almost that they were using just to get everybody checked in.
Gotcha.
And most people had to fill out the tax forms and whatnot. But they had a buffet set up for breakfast, and so they get you all signed in, and if they want you to just wear casual clothes like you're a pedestrian, you leave what you're wearing on, or if they want you to be... One time I was a student, so they had us dressed up like we were at a private school.
Nice.
So they'll get you signed in, dressed up if they have to, and then usually you'll hop on a shuttle and they'll take you to the set. So could be outside on a street, or it could be there's CineSpace in Chicago. Where it's like an old factory that they turned into a film site.
So you mentioned the buffet. I remember the buffet from last time as well. What are we looking at? Is this a solid buffet? Is it a bunch of like melon? What do we got?
It's not bad. Okay. They don't mess around with the food there. I mean, they've got breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snacks.
Okay.
Like, they're not fooling around. But yeah, it was a pretty good spread.
Mm-hmm. So you show up. You're signing all the paperwork. Is it different every time you show up? You have to fill out your tax forms, or are you like, oh, I'm a regular, like, let's speed this up?
They, I think if it's your first time, you have to. And then if you've already done one that year, I don't think you have to fill anything out again.
Gotcha.
But that first one that I did, it was kind of funny. There was a kid at school that I knew was interested in that stuff too.
Gotcha.
So I was like, hey, man, let's sign up for this.
Yeah.
And we both got it.
Nice.
And so we showed up at like 5 a.m.
Woo.
And it was a long day, but I was just so amused by being behind the scenes.
Yeah.
So I ended up a couple weeks after that, I skipped school like 4 times to go do that. And some of my teachers thought it was super cool, so they kind of promoted it. Like, they helped me do it.
That's awesome. So, like, what kind of stuff was amusing when you're behind the scenes?
Just seeing how it all goes together. It can be a little annoying too when you're there, because to get like the smallest amount of film, they redo it over and over again. So, it can be a long day.
Yeah.
The first couple times doing it, I was just so excited to be there and be a part of it.
Yeah.
Didn't matter.
Gotcha.
But after a while, I think if you do it enough, you'll get bored and kind of tired of it.
Yeah.
And where I live, it's so far from the city, driving in.
So was there ever a point where you're like, come on, they got it? Or just like, I could do this better? Like, what's going on that there's just so many takes?
I don't know. Sometimes you're not even that close to the action.
Okay.
You could be so far away, you might not even know what they're filming.
Really?
So you don't even know why they're resetting every time.
Gotcha.
But it's kind of cool because if you get lucky, they might kind of pull you out and have you do something more interesting.
Ooh.
Like one day they, in particular the school scene where they had us dressed up like we were in a private school, they called some of us back in because they wanted to film a shot that was inside.
Okay.
And they picked me and one other guy to be walking down the hallway while these two guys got in an argument, and then we had to like kind of run away when the argument started.
So do you have like the YouTube timestamp like picked out for these shows, or like do you watch them a lot?
I did.
Okay.
Yeah. And sometimes you'd like barely see yourself in the corner, or you'd have to like pause it just right. Yeah. But it was cool. The coolest one probably was that hallway scene. Mm-hmm. And the guy, what's his name? Severide, I believe is...
Terrible names, actors. I'm no help to you here.
Okay, well, he's... I wish I could think... Taylor Kenny. Anyways,
I got nothing for you.
He's an actor that I've seen in a movie before I did that. And he was sitting like across from me about this distance when we were waiting like... on the set pretty much, and I'm looking up at the guy and like Google him, and I'm like, shoot, this is weird. I didn't even say anything. I didn't want to bug him, but it was I'm really fascinated by being around that stuff.
So do you feel like they were acting a certain way, or they were just like generally cool, but just everyone just kind of left them alone?
They really, the extras didn't really mess with them too much. Like you could tell some people like really wanted to talk to him.
Gotcha.
And some people were, but I didn't even bother.
Yeah.
I don't want to be that guy.
For sure. For sure. When you're an actor, then you'll go chat with them.
Yeah, exactly.
So like, what were the hours? You get there at 5 a.m. What time do you start driving home at?
Man, there were some long days. I mean, there was one that I got there at 5 a.m. and then I probably didn't get home till like 8.
Wow.
Maybe.
That's a day right there.
It was a day. And then there was another time where it was shorter. Like you might show up, get dressed up, and then they, for some reason, just cancel or decide they don't need you, and they just send you home. But regardless, you get paid for 8 hours.
Oh, there you go. So then are you part of the is that a union thing then? Or that's just what they're doing for any extra?
For the extras, it wasn't union.
Okay. That's nice that they still give you 8 hours. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're still in school at this point, but not a whole bunch of school.
Yeah, this is high school. Yeah,
because we're skipping a couple days. But obviously we graduated. What was going on as far as racing and looking for like your next path?
So with racing, at that time, I was still full blown going to be a professional race car driver. Yep. Like this is the only thing that matters in life. Like every morning I woke up, like that was the first thing that was on my mind. And that's what I'm working towards all day. But then after I graduated, that's when we started sprint car racing. Kind of around the time that we did that last podcast, I think it's when I was getting into sprint car racing. And so that's like going from maybe high school football and you're the hot shot quarterback to going to D1 football and getting your butt kicked, you know? So, I mean, it was really tough when we made the move. And then at that time I was working as a laborer.
Yep.
Tough work through the week to go racing on the weekend. And then from there, it just, it was like I had to make a choice. It's like we either continue to do this with the chance of being able to do it professionally, or I started getting the ideas of becoming a pilot at that time. And so I kind of had that was my crossroads there.
So like, how did that, first off, how did the piloting become an option to you, or where did that come into the...
I was at a Christmas party, and my uncle owns a flight school.
That helps. That helps.
I think I was showing him pictures of my race car.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Man, you would love flying. You've got to come in and check it out. You know what? I'll pay for the flight. You come in. You just got to try it once."
Yeah.
And then after I tried I was hooked. Yeah.
So, are you writing down like pros and cons of like trying to become a professional racer? Like flying planes? Are you talking to a bunch of people? How do you figure out what direction you want to go to?
I don't know what made
me... Shook a magic 8-ball or...
I think I think the biggest thing that made me make that jump is when I was laboring for the... it was a masonry company. Yep. So, I mean, it was some tough work I was doing. And I was on the roof of a building in Chicago, and I saw the jets flying into O'Hare. Okay. And I was just getting baked by the sun. And I'm like, man, those pilots are up there in dress clothes, probably in the air conditioning.
Hopefully.
Probably making a lot of money. I'm like, that would be so cool to be up in the jet right now.
Yeah.
So I think the main thing that made me decide is it was just getting so tough. And I don't want to say I quit, but I mean, it made it really easy to...
Gotcha.
To go a different route.
So you like it was getting tough as in you were laboring, busting your ass, and then it was like hard to train as well. Like, what do you mean by getting tough?
Yeah. So for people that aren't familiar with racing, we built the cars. We did all the maintenance on them. If I crashed it, we're fixing them. Right. So I was working my job during the day, and then after work every night, working on the race car late. Right. To get it ready for the weekend. And then the weekend comes around and you're on the road driving far away, spending all weekend at the racetrack, coming home really late Sunday night to get up early in the morning Monday.
Right. Yeah.
And then Monday night you show up to the shop, car's still in the trailer dirty, you got to roll it out, wash it, and the whole cycle just continues.
Yeah.
And it was taking... pretty much everything we had to make that happen. Racing is by no means cheap.
Right.
You know, so it's taking, once I started working, I was able to contribute as well, but we were pretty much going from my dad putting everything he's got towards it and then whatever I could contribute by working. And so, yeah, it was just all of those factors together. It was really hard to keep it going.
Yeah. And what did you see as far as like your path? Because I think that a lot of people see like F1 or like professional racers or just any sport. They're like, oh, they must have just gotten here. Like, what do you think your path would have been if you did keep going like years, and like what would have that taken?
My overall goal was to drive World of Outlaw sprint cars professionally. Okay. So I was driving sprint cars, the same exact car that I could have raced if I was a professional.
Gotcha. Okay.
But we just had our own equipment, and we were racing in more of a lower division, I guess you could say. There was less competition. The guys I was racing with weren't doing it for a living.
Gotcha.
But the route I probably would have taken is if I could have gotten good enough in the sprint car to where I could win consistently. Once you get that good, a team owner that has their own car, they'll come grab you right away and have you drive theirs. So it would have been getting good enough to where I could win, to where someone would let me drive their car, and then get good enough to where someone will pay me to drive their car. Yeah.
So there's levels to it.
Yeah.
So the guys that were more casuals that you were racing against, how were you doing against them?
With the sprint car, I struggled at first, definitely. I mean, it was so much different than the cars I was racing before.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'd say I did pretty good for how old I was at the time and the experience I had.
Yeah.
But we never won any races.
So is it just winning that matters, or just like consistently finishing in like top 5? I have no idea. So like what like is winning all that matters? Is that just...
So there's a point system. So there's an overall championship. If you go to every race, you get, obviously, the higher you finish, the more points you get. So if you're consistently in the top 5, you could be the champion that year without ever winning a race.
Right.
And that would be good too. but the better you can finish, the better off you are with making a career out of it, if that's what you're trying to do.
Yeah. Okay. So we're doing that. We're racing, we're cleaning, we're working. What's the masonry job? Like, is that with the masons, or like what does that mean?
So now I don't really know that much about about the work itself.
I was just sitting on roofs.
I was just doing what they told me, which was most of the time they did a lot of tuck pointing on schools, which is the brick wall's already made, but you take a grinder and you grind out all the old mortar between the bricks. You grind it all out, and then they come along and then they put in new mortar. I think they do that if the walls start to leak or if they start to get cracked.
So you're not taking all of it out. You're just
you're taking like half of it out.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
It's like I think I took out too much timber. So that was just we're working all day.
Oh yeah, it was tough work for sure. Especially that grinding. You've got that grinder all day, which is actually what I was doing for side money recently.
Okay. But, there we go.
Yeah, it was not fun, and I knew that I couldn't.
Yeah.
Or that I did not want to do that kind of work for the rest of my life.
So then we get to that first flight. What are you feeling before you get to the flight? Like, were you like, oh, I kind of want to cancel, it's something new, or were you just like, I'm in?
I was in. Like, I was excited, and I thought since I was a race car driver that I was just going to be the best pilot ever.
Easy,
I thought, I'm not going to be scared or rattled, but
yeah.
I mean, flying your first time when you've got the controls.
Yeah.
And I'm used to a car where you've got pretty much one axis, and in the air you've got three.
Right.
And I just felt so disoriented my first flight. Yeah.
Okay. That's not good news, because like for me, I always see clips of this, but just like I think the average male believes he can land a plane like without killing ourselves. I'm like, yeah, like I've seen people do it online. They just call in to whoever's gonna help them, and they just land. It's just nice and easy. Some guy's calm voice, and you ride it in. So apparently that's not as easy as I thought it was gonna be.
Oh yeah. Did you try it on a sim or anything?
No. I just basically, when I see like a headline of like pilot passes out and passenger lands plane, and it's like, I can do that.
Do you think you could? If you were to take a guess.
So I played a lot of GameCube Monkey Ball. Have you ever played that game? So
Maybe.
You go down a ramp, you go up, and then like you're flying and stuff like that. Then to pick up speed, you go down, you come back up, and like if there's a lot of wind, you got to handle it.
Yeah.
This is very niche information for the crowd right here. But I feel like once you get a hang of it, as long as there's not like too much wind and whatever going on, I feel like I might be able to manage.
I thought you were going to say like Microsoft Flight Simulator or something.
Nope. Little GameCube game.
Yeah.
So you get in there. When you get the controls, do you just immediately start to nosedive? Are you gliding? Like, what's happening?
So, I mean, we took off, and taking off is easy.
Okay.
I mean, especially in the small planes that I was training in, they're Cessna 172s.
Okay.
And so the throttle, it's like literally a knob that you just push in. Once that's pushed in, all you have to do is pull back to take off.
So throttle means you're giving...
It's like your gas pedal.
You're giving gas. Okay. So then if the if the throttle's already forward, like how are you going to get more power? Or that's just
Once you got it at full power, that's all you got.
That's all you got.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So throttle, pull back. Look at that. I can take off.
Yeah.
Once
I got it. Exactly. So taking off, you're good. Once you reach you're rolling down the runway. Once you reach the right speed, you just pull back just enough for that thing to come off the ground.
What happens if you pull up too early?
If you were to just start pulling back as much as you could right away, the plane will come off the ground before you're fast enough to actually fly.
Okay.
So when the plane is really close to the ground, you'll get better performance than if you're, I don't know how much off the ground, maybe like 50 feet off the ground.
Okay.
So There's like this little window that you can fly in, but once you get outside of that, you're gonna come crashing back down.
Oh, interesting.
Pretty much, yeah. If you're not fast enough, yeah.
Gotcha. So like, if you take off too early, you're like, oh, I got this, and then you keep trying to climb, not gonna go well.
Yeah. If you
haven't hit the speed.
Yeah, exactly.
Gotcha.
The speed is the key there.
And then if you go too fast, and then will you just take up too aggressively, or like what happens there?
You really wouldn't be worried about being too fast. Really, on the takeoff, it wouldn't really hurt you.
So when I take off in an escape heist, if you will, I will just make sure throttle's down. We're going at an aggressive speed, and then I'm just gonna pull up just a little bit.
Yeah.
All right. So we're up.
Yeah.
How do you make sure, like, obviously there's turbulence at some point. Will the plane just like kind of like start tilting and then you got to correct, or like how do we feel?
So if assuming you're not flying in the clouds,
get nervous.
assuming that you can still see the ground, all you have to do is look outside to keep yourself level. So if you feel it banking left or right, you literally can just adjust accordingly just by looking at the ground itself. If you're in the clouds, you can't do that.
That's gonna be wild. That's gonna be wild. So when you are we're getting real deep in this flying thing here. I want to know more. Going on a flight tomorrow, just like in case something happens, I'll be able to take the wheel or whatever it's called. So when you're holding on to, is it a steering wheel? Is it what's the control?
I don't even know. No, I'm kidding.
Hey, grab
most people call it a yoke.
A yoke
is what you call it. Some people call it a wheel. I call it a yoke.
Got it. Yoke. So we have the yoke. Is that something that you can turn like this, or is it like you have to maneuver the whole thing? What is...
There's a few different types, but most of the time what you'd see is it looks similar to a steering wheel.
Okay. Is it like the Tesla wheel? The one that's...
Yeah, like that.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it's not fully round and connected. You've got kind of the two sides. But you can turn left or right just like a normal steering wheel would, but you can also push it in or back.
And then in is down.
Yep.
Okay. Are you going to bed? Hi. Hi. Have a kiss. I'm just going to say You say bye. I'm just gonna stare. Bye, Eddie. See you later. Oh, there it is. So forward is down because the nose is going down. Back, we're going up. If we have the speed. Gotcha. So we'll get into more specifics as the questions come up. But are you taking off on your first flight? Is he just saying like, "Hey, go for it," or like, how's the first flight go?
That's a good question. I probably did, because once I started teaching, I'd always have
on the first flight.
First lessons for students, I'd have them do the takeoff. Yeah, because keep in mind you've got both controls. You've got the controls on both sides.
So you're side by side, not front to back on this?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. And you have all of the controls on each side. It's not like he's just got the brake over there or something like that. So at any moment, you could take over the controls, or if they're not doing it correctly, you could just add small inputs.
Okay.
And tell them what you're doing, and
Gotcha.
It's fine. So it's really not as big of a deal as it seems.
It seems pretty exciting.
It's not like I'm sitting in the back and they're up front and I'm telling them what to do.
Okay, so we take off, we get up there. What are you feeling? Are you immediately like, yes, I want to do this, or?
I was really excited about it for sure, but I definitely kind of had some thoughts like, oh shoot, this is there's a lot involved here.
Okay.
And now for me, if I go and like tomorrow morning, I'm going to go fly with my cousin in these same planes. At this point now, it's like getting in a car. Like it seems so easy right now.
Okay.
But at the first time, I was like, how am I going to get the hang of this? Like this is crazy.
Okay.
I mean, I knew I could, but I was definitely like, wow, this is going to take some work for sure.
Learning something new. So you get addicted to it. What's going on as far as like transitioning out of racing? Do you like tell your dad like, I'm thinking about doing this flight thing? Like, do you immediately say like, I'm out skis, or how's that go?
It was a really slow transition.
Okay.
I think the biggest change happened when I decided that I was going to fly, because we continued to race even after I started my flight lessons.
Oh, so you had a little bit going on in your life.
Yeah, exactly. But there was definitely a change of intensity.
Yeah.
That whole waking up in the morning and thinking about racing all day, and that was my purpose in life. That whole thing kind of changed once I started flying.
Gotcha.
I was kind of serving two masters, if
Okay.
you will, at that point.
That. Yeah.
I mean, it was hard to balance the two, you know, because racing wasn't really getting the full attention that it deserved, and then flying wasn't either for a little while. You know, because I was still hanging on to that race car driver dream.
So when was it like a day? Did someone say, "Hey, you got to pick one," or how did you decide to switch those?
That's a good question. I think there was one day that my dad and I went to the airport, and my uncle met us there, and we kind of took a walk around the school, and we're talking about how to actually do it, like talking about the finance portion of it and whatnot. And that's when I decided, okay, I'm gonna sign up, and I'm gonna do this for sure. So as soon as I signed up, that's where the change slowly started to happen.
Gotcha.
Because I raced for like, I think 5 or 6 years up until that point, and that's all I did.
Right.
So I didn't drop it right away mentally. Like, that's something that had to slowly kind of dissipate.
So while that's going on, like, you see this new path going up, like, are you staying up at night thinking like, oh, I'm making the wrong decision, or like, how are you mentally handling things?
It was weird. It was rough. It was like it was like a breakup, you know. But for me at the time, maybe a little more than a breakup.
Yeah.
But it was definitely like you said, like kind of keeping me up at night thoughts. Like, oh, did I make the wrong decision? I honestly still think about it every day about the whole racing thing. Yeah. But it was not an easy decision to make. I still don't, sometimes I still question that decision. Yeah. Because if I had all the money in the world and I could do whatever I wanted, I would drive sprint cars. Okay. That's all I would do. Yeah. And I've got one life. And sometimes I question, I'm like, why aren't I doing that? Yeah. So we'll see what happens in the future.
Hey,
but
we got plenty of podcasts to come.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm committed with flying right now, and I'm going to see that through. But yeah.
I always find it interesting. Like, these are the things that, like, I wish school would have taught us, like a class on like how to deal with hard things. Hard decisions. Like, do you write things down? Do you talk to people? Like, do the emotions that come through your head, or is that like a true emotion? Do you have to hold on to all of them? What do you feel like has served you best to stay very mentally, I'd say, like, aware? It doesn't seem like it's tearing you apart. You're allowed to be like, oh, like, this is a possibility that I could be racing, but you're not like, oh, my life is ruined, I have to go fly a plane. Like, you seem very not necessarily okay with it, but like, you're doing shit. Like, you're still able to function very well.
Yeah. It's so weird. When I was racing, like I said, that's the only thing I really thought about. Right. And that was my only option at the time. I never even thought of anything else happening. Like, I never thought of quitting. Yeah. Never thought of doing something else. Even if I saw something else that I thought was cool that I would want to do, it was like, well, I'm racing. This is what I picked. This is what I'm doing. That's interesting, but no more thoughts than that. Gotcha. Into doing something else. And that was a really good feeling to have. Yes. Like, I felt so good about all the effort and the work I was putting in. Yeah. And like you and I working together with the fitness portion of it, like, I felt like I was taking like every step that I could take to be successful there, I was doing, and that felt so good. And then now that I really don't have that, and now that I have options, like, I can do other things with my time. Right. I'm just like, all day, like, I get these random ideas, like, and then I change my mind like that.
Yeah.
You know, it's so hard for me to want to pick something and be consistent at it.
Yeah.
Or like, I know to be great at anything, it's going to take a lot of time and effort.
Yes.
So now it's like I'm in those stages where what's going to be my next thing that
I'm currently, I think it's like a 10,000 hour rule or whatever it is. And I'm splitting my 10,000 hours between jiu-jitsu, archery, CrossFit, volleyball, I think pickleball right now. I think we might need to bring it down to just. I mean, Jessica thinks I should be doing less, but I'm thinking I can pick up a couple more things.
Yeah.
Oh, and backpacking. We're trying to get back into that. So looking back on your racing career, is there a moment where you're like, this was so much fun, or like a series, or like when someone asks you, like, what you enjoyed? What was your favorite moment about racing? Do you have one or? My
favorite moment? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I've got a moment that's pretty cool.
Let's go.
My dad.
It's not that rock one, is it?
The rock. Oh, that's a funny story, but that's not a cool one.
Well, say that one first, because I tell people it sometimes, like, this isn't my story, so this could be just totally different. So I want to refresh myself.
So I need a refresher on it too, but I know that there was a race where a big rock was stuck under my pedal.
Okay.
And
that's not great.
No, it's not great. And I had some issues with it. I think eventually I got it kicked out.
Okay.
But I felt it hit me in the chest when it first came into the car. And sure enough, it dropped to the floor, ended up right under my gas pedal. And I couldn't push the gas pedal all the way to the floor. And I was getting like half out of it maybe.
Yeah. And I'm pretty sure that was in like a series of events of like just something would go wrong each race. And you're like, you won't believe it. A rock hit me. I'm like, what?
Even crazier than that. I don't know if I told you about this one, but the seatbelt that I had in the car.
It kept tightening?
Yeah. Yeah. So you would tighten this seatbelt with a ratchet wrench.
Shouldn't be laughing. Sorry.
So what happened was normally my dad would do it, and you'd have to put the wrench back in a position where it locks in place.
Gotcha.
So you can't adjust it anymore.
Yeah.
Now, my dad wasn't around when I was hopping in the car, so
Dad.
my friend had to tighten it, and he didn't know to put it in that position after he tightened it. So all of a sudden throughout the race, I feel my lap belt starting to get tighter and tighter and tighter. The wrench was laying on a bar that would move up and down with the suspension of the car anytime there was a bump.
Well, you probably can't reach that, can you? Or could you reach it at all?
Eventually, I did.
Well, but you were driving also.
I was driving at the time. So
going at extreme speed.
And I didn't know what the heck was going on.
Yeah.
Why would my seatbelt be getting tighter throughout the race? Like, I just couldn't figure out what was going on. But it started to get so tight that it was starting to hurt a little bit.
Yeah.
Luckily, a caution came out, which anytime there's like a wreck on the track or someone spins out, they pretty much pause the race. Yeah. So I was able to reach around and like get it fixed. Right. But the rest of the race, my seatbelt was extremely tight, but it didn't get any tighter.
I just want someone to pick up the last episode and this episode and do like an animated series of these little things that have happened to you. Yeah. So what was the best experience? The memory. The
best experience was I had a breakthrough of when I finally when I felt like I got it. Okay. Like I moved up to the next level. So with the cars that I raced on the dirt track, depending on the track condition, you could either go around the bottom, which is a lot slower, and you're really not drifting the car very much. You're kind of keeping it straight. Yeah. And when I first started out, my dad would only let me run the bottom. Okay. So it was a lot slower, a lot more tame, and he just figured he'd have me do that until I got comfortable enough. And then we'd move up to the top where you're hammered down, coming in sideways.
You have videos on your Instagram of that, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I remember watching those, and the race I went to, I was like, he's just going. He's just going.
Yeah. So there was a race where I was running the bottom, and everyone's passing me on the top. The top was fast. The bottom was not any good that race.
Yeah.
And I just kind of had a breakthrough where I was like, all right, I'm going for it.
Yeah.
And there was this one guy that at the time was kind of one of the best drivers in that series.
Okay.
And I ended up moving to the top. That guy, I think, passed me. So I'm like, screw it. I'm going for it. And I just grew a pair. And it was like, man, I'm doing this. And then next thing I know, I'm right on that guy's rear bumper.
Yeah.
And I threw what's called a slide job on him, where you go down to the bottom of the racetrack and you slide up in front of him.
So that's not technically faster, but because you get to that point first, he has to slow down, right?
Pretty much.
Okay.
Yeah. It's almost like cutting someone off.
Yeah.
But it's acceptable
Yeah.
in that form of racing.
Well, I mean, that's the difference between everyone just like running their own lap. Like you have to do it smart.
Exactly.
Okay.
But
So that slide job that you got on him, that was the moment you're like,
that was it. But
Yeah.
he got me back, and it was a little bit of a battle. I don't
Okay.
remember if I ended up in front of him or he beat me, but I pulled in, and my dad I remember the look on his face, like he was excited, like, what?
Yeah.
What were you just racing with him? Like,
Yeah.
yeah. Like,
That's awesome.
so that was like a confidence booster moment.
Yeah.
That was like the big breakthrough. So that was one of the better memories, or one of the best memories. Yeah. One of the better ones.
Yeah, for sure. Do you have any moments, it could have been not your past life, but as you were younger or older, anything else that you did in your life that you're like, hey, like this was hard for me to do, I've been working for it, and like I've made those steps forward? Or like, how do you feel the rest of things have been going?
Well, flight training has been pretty intense.
Okay.
For sure. And it's been very rewarding. 'Cause throughout high school, you probably talked to me about grades. Like we probably had that discussion at some point.
When we first started talking, you're like, I wanted, like we were crushing in the gym. You're like, I'm killing this, I'm doing that. And then you're like, I want to get better grades. Like if I remember, like I think I can get better grades, I can do this, so on and so forth. But yeah, no, I remember having that conversation.
Yeah. So I did not get the best grades by any means. And so that was kind of, and throughout like not just high school, but any school that I went through. And that was kind of like an insecurity I had almost, like, man, I could have had straight A's, like I could have done that. Why didn't I just put in the effort? Because I didn't think I needed it for anything. And I was just so focused on the things I wanted to do or that I thought would improve my life. So I really didn't put the effort in there. But with flight training, there was a lot of studying. So I had to, I got the chance to learn how to be a student, and I got the chance to be a good one too.
Yeah.
So it was kind of nice to have a second chance at that. But yeah, there were so many different steps of training to get to the airlines, and then the airline training itself. The past, like, I've been back a month now, almost just about. But the 3 months before that, I was living out of hotels, doing class all day, studying every day. That was nuts.
You get into the flight school with your uncle. What does a day look like? Are you just flying all the time, or what? Like, what does flight school day, school, whatever look like?
So you can pretty much pick your schedule, but I was flying about 3 times a week, and then there's lessons that you do at home on your computer, or at least that's how our school did it. So I would do the lessons at home and then fly at least 3 times a week. And then I ended up working at the flight school too, just cleaning planes. I mean, the more I was around the planes, the more I could learn. Just being around pilots and at the airport helped out a lot.
When you're cleaning a plane, is it similar to cleaning a car, or do you have to, like, if you do something wrong, like, is that plane going to crash? I don't know how fickle these things are.
I wasn't washing them with a hose. It was mostly like get the bugs off the windshield, sanitize the controls for the next people. It was mostly just getting the bugs off them. But yeah, I don't think you really couldn't cause much damage washing them.
I guess that would be an issue if you're like flying in the rain, if that was a problem.
Yeah. Exactly.
So the school stuff, like the classes you had to take online, was it hard to study for? Or how did you improve from when you struggled in school, like when you weren't putting in as much effort?
Well, when I first started taking lessons, since I was still racing,
Yeah.
I didn't fully become a good student yet. It took some time. So those lessons at home, I think I took it really serious the first 2, and then when it was like, oh, I've got to get all these lessons done, but I've got to go work on the race car, I think I started to kind of click through them a little quicker at that point. But after I got my private pilot's license, I think that's when I kind of made the switch to becoming a better student. And I think that's also when we sold the sprint car.
Ooh.
And I think that's when I fully committed myself to being a pilot.
Probably hard to run around the track without without having a car. So how hard was it to, 1, put the car up for sale, and then 2, actually sell it?
The whole thing was weird.
I
remember the conversation. My dad and I were in the shop, and I think he could see that I was. It was hard for me to divide my attention between the two, and that both were kind of suffering from it. So we both kind of knew. And then I remember when we were having the conversation, and then when I made the decision, it's like the world stopped.
Yeah.
I'm like, did I really, is this happening? This is just crazy. And then, selling the stuff was tough.
I bet.
Not fun.
So did you at least go buy something nice for you to help get over it a little bit, or?
No, I don't think so.
Sitting on cash. So we're full send on getting into a plane. Are we just going to school, washing, flying? Are we doing anything else in our life at that point?
No, not really. I think I coped. My coping mechanism was focusing on the flying.
Okay.
But my next rating, my instrument rating, I got done in 2 months, which is pretty fast for that. I think most people.
So what does that mean as far as you get certain ratings? It's certificate and insult, or what's the?
So basically, to become, let's say, if you want to be an airline pilot, which most young people that go to that flight school have the intentions of being an airline pilot.
Gotcha.
So what they have to do is you get your private pilot it's a certificate. Everyone calls it a license.
Yeah.
Doesn't really matter, but technically it's a certificate. And then you get your private pilot certificate, then your instrument rating, which gets added to your certificate. It's privileges. So with that rating, you're learning how to fly in the clouds, learning how to navigate without being able to see the ground.
So how does someone enforce that? How do you? How do I ask this question? How do you do that and not get in trouble, or how do you get in trouble if you do it too early?
Yeah. So.
Great question.
If unfortunately, I don't know who would catch you if you did it without your rating.
Right.
I mean, there's ways they could, but to actually fly in the clouds, at first I'm like, what the heck? How are we gonna navigate? How are we gonna get lined up with the runway?
Right.
Well, there's ways.
Oh yeah.
But pretty much you're learning how to use your instruments to keep the plane straight and level. Right. And there's ways to navigate. Where you want to go.
There's not a lot of rogue people that are just I'm gonna go to the clouds, or everyone. It's run pretty smoothly, I'm guessing then.
Yeah, it is. And you file a flight plan when you fly in the clouds, so you can't just decide, oh hey, let's punch through that right there.
Gotcha.
You can't. You've got to be on a flight plan.
Okay.
And so you're talking with ATC while you're doing this.
Okay. What's air traffic control?
Yeah. Nailed it. Nailed it. So you're talking with them, and you've got your route filed, and so they're pretty much like your safety, right? So they know where the other planes are. They know where your route is.
Yeah.
And
so it's Thursday morning. On Friday, my daughter's crying, but our microphones won't pick it up. So it's Thursday morning. I want to fly, say Saturday or Sunday down to Tennessee. How how early of a time frame do I need to give a flight plan? Do I like just draw with crayon on something? Like what? I just imagine like a treasure map. Like I'm starting here and then like X right here.
So there's what are called Victor Airways.
Okay.
So these are like highways in the sky, essentially.
Okay. We're in the future
Yeah,
now.
yeah. So on your map,
Okay.
or you could call it's called an IFR load chart. When you look at that, you can see these airways on there.
Okay.
And you can pretty much pick the route you want, and then you send in to file it.
Okay.
As far as when you file it, you could do it like 15 minutes before
Hey.
and get it and go.
Okay.
Yeah, as long as they accept the flight plan and they get it.
Gotcha.
But there's an app. It's so nice. You can just do it on there. Heck, you can just put where you're going and hit routes, and it'll give you a bunch of different routes, and you
Really?
just pick one that works. Yeah.
So obviously now we're playing like 4D chess with highways in the air. How do you know if you're on the right highway? Do you have coordinates while you're flying, or it's just like you take off, you gotta go 17 degrees, and then like you got the guy up there looking like, how do you know?
So there, to give you the full answer, it's kind of complicated, but
You know.
bro,
You know.
But most of the time, you don't even end up flying the route that they give you. Most of the time, they'll just give you direct to your destination.
Okay.
If it's close enough,
Okay.
and you're in a smaller plane, and your GPS in the plane, you just hit direct to, and it draws a straight line there, and you just go there.
Okay.
But the route is so that if you lose your radios in the air,
Okay.
you've got a backup. So if you lose your radios and you can't talk to anybody, that route is so ATC knows where you're going to be,
Okay.
so that no one's freaking out.
Gotcha. So what happens if you lose your radios, and are you in between air traffic control? Like who's got you when you're flying? Say we're starting at this water and then flying there, and like you said, you could take a different path. Like say you go out here. Does their radar see that you're here? Does that radar see you?
So when you're on a flight plan or an IFR flight plan, you can't just go wherever you want.
Okay.
So you get cleared your route, and then you can make requests, or ATC could tell you to do something different, but you can't just make the decision on your own. Do whatever you want. But then as you go along, there's different sectors that ATC will control. So once you cross over into the next one, they'll give you a frequency to contact.
Gotcha.
And then you just contact the next guy.
You say like, "Hey, bro, like I'm here," like, or you got like rundown. I feel like
That's what you could say that.
Okay.
You could say
And
that.
would it be well
as
received?
long as you say your tail number at the end, so they know who you are.
Gotcha.
Technically, you could say that. I don't think they'd like it, but
So it was probably when I was talking to you the most. Instagram knew that I was that you were flying planes, because I would get a lot of air traffic control, like memes or reels or whatever it is. Like, what's the funniest thing you've heard while just like either flying or from somebody else?
oh man, it's kind of funny when ATC is yelling at someone.
Okay.
Or I shouldn't say yelling, but if
A stern talk.
if someone is being a pain in the butt,
Okay.
and ATC gets frustrated with them, that can be kind of funny.
Okay, so give me an example. Is it a rich guy? Is it somebody that's just like he thinks his plane's better? Or like, what's the situation? We don't have to give tail numbers. So.
No, yeah, we won't talk tail numbers.
Okay.
But usually, if there's a cocky pilot,
Okay.
like if they think they know better, like if ATC gives them an instruction and they say something kind of with a little bit of attitude. Well, we were just blah blah blah.
Gotcha.
You know, once they give that attitude, then
So
the controller usually gets
everywhere. It can be in tennis, volleyball, driving a car, talking to a police officer. Same people up in the air.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Exactly.
Gotcha. So can you hear the conversation as well then?
Oh yeah, yeah. If you're on like, let's say you're flying at the DuPage Airport.
Okay.
Everyone in that airspace is on the same frequency. So at any time tower's talking or another plane's talking, you all hear that.
Oh, that's got to be a riot.
It can be.
Okay.
But it also helps so that you know where everyone else is at.
Gotcha.
Like if you hear a guy that just got cleared to land and you're like, wait a second, we're coming into land.
Okay.
You know,
Okay.
you know where everyone else is at the airport.
Without getting in trouble, what's the closest like problem that's happened?
Man.
Something your mom's not going to be. So I don't want to get a call and like, hey, I didn't know about this.
Man. That's a good question. How about this? I'll give you a funny one.
Okay, I'll take funny.
It's
I'll take funny.
not a problem one, but a funny one.
Okay, we'll take that.
And I doubt he's gonna listen to this, but I had a student that there's two different planes. One's bigger and one's smaller. The smaller one's cheaper.
Okay.
So this guy came in and he was a whopper.
Okay. What's a whopper?
He was a big boy.
Gotcha.
Chubby.
Gotcha.
And he wanted to fly the little plane.
Yeah.
And they're very tight. I mean,
yeah.
Like for me,
Whopper.
it's tight in there. Whoever you're sitting next to, you're gonna be up against them.
Gotcha.
Right?
Gotcha.
It's that tight. So I knew it was gonna be a problem.
Yeah.
So we get out to the plane, and they're not very easy to get into either. He was having a very hard time getting into the plane.
Okay.
And I didn't know how to help him.
Right.
You know, and I have this thing where in situations like that, it's hard for me not to laugh.
Oh,
and
that's
so,
tough. That's tough. That's tough. Hate to see it.
He was having a hard time getting in.
Yeah.
And it was almost like he had to get like a running start to get his momentum going to get in there. But he finally ended up figuring it out. And then I'm huddled up in the corner and on the side there.
Yeah. So is there any safety issue that's going on? Like, could his stomach get in the way of like steering?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it could. It was mostly just uncomfortable for me,
Gotcha.
you know, because I was so scrunched in there.
Yeah.
But this was kind of a problem child student.
Gotcha. Okay.
We'd come in for landing and something wasn't going right, and I'm saying like, hey, I got the controls, like my controls.
Yeah.
And he doesn't want to let go of the controls.
That's an issue.
Yeah. So I ended up not flying with that one anymore.
Gotcha. I think that's a smart choice.
Yeah.
So we run me through a landing as far as how do you come in and not just like slam down. Like give me a nice easy. If I'm taking the plane tomorrow, obviously like confidence is we're at full confidence right now. Walk me through how I'm landing.
So on that kind of related to that, I'll answer that right after I say this. I forgot to tell you that I asked that student why they wanted to learn how to fly, and that student said that if they were on a commercial flight and there was ever an emergency, they wanted to know how to handle it.
Let's go. Come on. There we go.
That is the craziest thing I've ever heard. Like,
that's fantastic.
Like, this is a little extreme, but okay.
Just in case.
Yeah.
Maybe he knew better than a majority of adult males that think they can land a plane. He actually wanted to go out there and figure out how to do it.
Yeah. But to land it, the small ones that I was instructing in, pretty much with those, what you're going to do is you're going to get slowed down to a specific speed. So you start slowing the plane down. You've got flaps that you can put out.
Okay.
And the flaps are going to help you pretty much fly at a slower ground speed.
So you're flying slower, but you're able to stay even.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So you start putting out the flaps, start slowing the plane down, and then once you start getting close to the ground, you start reducing a little bit of the power. And what you want to do is it's like a game of don't let the wheels touch the ground.
Gotcha.
A little bit.
Okay.
You just hold it off, and then once you start to get slow enough and the wings aren't producing lift, it just gradually will set itself down on the runway.
So then the nose is up a little bit?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the mains are going to touch first, and the nose is going to stay off the ground.
I don't want to be landing like some rookie tomorrow.
Yeah, no, don't let the nose wheel hit. Don't land on all three.
So have you been around any like bad landings? Not like catastrophic, but just like where they're smacking down.
Yeah. The it's kind of fun.
Yeah.
Most new students, when they're learning to land, I mean, you see some rough ones, but
Yeah.
like I said, you've got the controls there, so you can let them kind of mess it up a little bit, but you can make slight adjustments and kind of correct it to straighten it out.
Okay.
But I have seen some pretty bad
and
landings.
Can the planes take that kind of punishment? Because I feel like that's not punishment that's like great, but also like the plane should be designed to handle like a little bit at least.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, they're definitely pretty tough.
Okay.
And those flight school planes, all they have is people learning how to land, and they hold up just fine.
Okay.
It's up to the instructor to make sure that nobody just completely slams into the ground.
Gotcha. Okay, so we're flying planes a little bit here and there. What are we doing to let off steam? Are we still working out? Are we just partying? What's going on?
That's a good question. So, not a whole lot.
Yeah.
I still working out. My fitness level kind of started to decline.
Yeah.
Once I started.
Understandable.
Once I started flying, especially once I started instructing.
Okay.
I mean, I just threw exercise and nutrition on the back burner. Like, it wasn't...
Let's hear it. What are we eating?
Pizza, a lot of Jimmy John's. Just what... I was eating whatever I felt like eating.
Okay.
How
did that feel? Did you feel good? Were you like, this is great. Like, I can live like this?
No.
Okay.
No, it was... It was a slow transition to I thought I was in excellent shape.
Yeah.
I could see my abs. I thought that was pretty cool. I wouldn't say I was like shredded by any means, but I felt really confident with how the shape I was in at the time. And then all of a sudden one day I'm like, shoot, I can't see any kind of
no definition.
No definition anymore. When did this happen? Not a good feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the biggest reason, like, since I wasn't racing, I didn't have a reason to really go that hard in the gym, other than just taking care of myself and looking how I want to look. But I was not very excited about that.
So did you start like meal prepping a little bit more, or like what was going on then?
I really didn't make that big of a change.
I didn't get the extra large. I just got the large. It was great. We figured it out.
Yeah.
So were you just stopped going to the gym altogether?
I was still working out, but there was no kind of routine. It was like whenever I wanted to. And then in my head, I was like, oh, I'm still an athlete. I'm still in great shape.
Because I remember you started running a lot at that point too.
Yeah. Well, there was a point where I did start racing again after we sold the stuff. So I guess once I was done with racing, after the second phase of racing, that's when I got out of shape.
Okay.
I still exercised, ran a lot, like maintained my fitness into that second time that we booted up the racing again. Okay. But yeah, it was after that.
So as far as your mental fortitude, how do you think that you were performing while like flying and teaching and stuff like that?
When I taught, I was working 7 days a week.
Oh.
And now you could pick your schedule as an instructor, but I had it open all the hours I possibly could. Every day of the week. There was like 3 months straight where I think I was at the airport every day, whether it was flying or teaching ground. Like if there was bad weather, I'd go in to teach ground. Like I just wanted to get my hours as soon as I could. You need 1,500 to go to an airline.
So are you also getting paid at that point, or are you just there because you want to like just cruise through this thing?
You're getting paid, but there's some sacrifices you have to make. Like as an instructor, you only get paid for the time you fly. Okay. So let's say I had a lesson that was early in the morning. Let's say it was at 7 a.m.
Yeah.
And I would fly with that student, and my next student wasn't till 6 p.m. Now I live almost an hour from the airport.
Right.
So what most people would do is they would either cancel that second student or find somebody else to take them. Because most sane people are like, why would I waste my whole day at the airport to get an extra hour of flight time?
Are sane people fun to hang around?
No.
Are they on the podcast? No.
No. So I would have a lot of days like that.
Okay.
I'm like, even if I had to wait here all day, I'd bring a book.
What are we reading?
Think and Grow Rich
by
Napoleon Hill. Have you heard of that one?
Yeah. We talked about that. Cool.
Yeah. What else? Richest Man in Babylon.
Okay. I have not read that one. I've been told to read that one a lot.
It's good.
Okay.
I don't think it's anything that you wouldn't already know.
Okay.
But I think it was just nice to see things put in simple terms, kind of reinforce some.
As far as I know, it's usually like nutrition that we talk about as far as like family and whatnot. But as far as like finances and stuff like that, another thing I wish school was better at. Other than the checkbook.
Yeah.
What have you learned either from those books or just from living life that's been beneficial for you?
I learned that anybody can get wealthy in their lifetime. I thought that was only something that very few people could do, because my parents really didn't know much about planning ahead financially or investing money and whatnot. So I didn't get that from them.
Right.
And I was like, as a kid, I was always confused. Like, wow, how come these people are rich? You know, like how does that happen? Like, just clueless.
Yeah.
And then I start reading these books, watching YouTube videos, and I'm like, wow, if you plan things out, you know, you don't have to start some crazy business. Like, just about anyone, if they're disciplined, could eventually be wealthy.
Yeah. Some might say discipline equals freedom.
Yeah.
But I'm not Jocko at the moment. So for you, what were the small steps that you were able to take that you found have been beneficial for yourself as far as investing or just saving or making money?
Well, the thing is, I kind of had to restart with building my wealth. Mm-hmm. Not there yet, but in the process.
Yeah.
So when I was instructing, I started investing like half of my paycheck every week.
Wow.
And
that's great.
I had invested what I thought was a pretty good amount of money. Like I was excited about it. And then I had once I got my airline class date.
Yeah.
There was a specific date that I had to have all of my hours flown by. I had to have 1,500 by this date to start my new job.
How close were you?
I don't remember exactly, but pretty much what happened was I used all of that money to rent planes to get those extra hours I needed. So
either you're flying or you're instructing, either way you're getting hours.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So I built my flight time just by teaching, but then I kind of reached a point where I was like, oh, I don't know if I'm going to have the hours yet.
Right.
I'm like, I don't want to do this, but this next job is going to be kind of the start of my career. I'm like, I'm going to get this done. So
well, and if you would not have been investing little by little by little, then you wouldn't even had that as an option.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, everything I invested, I could have easily blown on dinners and movies and whatnot. So yeah, the fact that I even put it away was nice to have that when I needed it.
So when you go for the airline job, is it similar to like doctors and where you just say like, oh, this is where I want to go, and then you hope they pick you, or how does that process go?
Well, you can apply to any airline that you want to.
Okay.
The major airlines, you need some more requirements to get into. So you don't start off at United or American.
Okay.
You have to get some experience in a jet to go there. So most people go to a regional airline, which you'll see them. Like if you go to O'Hare and you see a plane that says United Express or Delta Connection, just a little bit smaller jet, still a jet.
Okay.
Still says American or United.
Yeah.
But a different company owns that plane and they do the work for the bigger companies. So that's what a regional airline is.
So what's the purpose of the name? are they just like subcontracted out, or how does that?
Yeah.
Like, why is their name on there?
I think that would be the best way to put it.
Okay.
Yeah, they just get this work done for the major airlines.
Gotcha.
But it's just a smaller jet. Like most people, I say the airline that I work for, and most people they're like, I've never heard of that.
Yeah.
Like you could buy a United ticket,
Okay,
and end up on that plane, and you probably wouldn't know it unless you were looking.
Okay, so what was your first? Have you been in it? Are you flying jets, or are you just in simulators?
Yeah,
I
am.
We're flying.
Now. Yeah,
we're flying. All right.
Yeah.
So. You did a lot of work on car simulators. So when you got into a flight simulator, what was that like?
These things are nuts.
You sent me a picture of them.
Yeah.
It looked like it was like a sci-fi movie where like embryos are born.
Yeah. So the racing sim was a desktop computer with a steering wheel.
Yeah.
That I wouldn't compare it at all. Like these sims are, I think someone said they were $40 million, and I believe it. Like you get into this thing from the outside, it looks like some kind of spaceship that's up like 10 feet in the air on hydraulic cylinders. Yeah. And then you get in there and you feel like you're in a plane. And then especially once they get that thing started up, I mean, when you get out, you're disoriented. Okay. Because you feel like you were just flying around in the air. And now you get out and you're on solid ground in a warehouse or whatever, you know?
So what was flying the simulator jet compared to like your first time flying a real jet?
They're very similar.
Okay.
They're very similar.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great to hear.
Yeah.
It is wonderful to hear.
Yeah. If anything, the real plane was easier than the sim because the sim does a good job of giving you depth perception. Okay. But in the real plane, you've got real depth perception. You can see
a lot better.
So it's accurate.
Gotcha. Okay.
But yeah, it was the first time flying. It was really easy.
What is that training like? Are we? I just imagine you in that 172. Is that what you were flying before?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. You're in 172. So then, what's the name of the first jet that you're flying, or like number?
It's the Embraer 175.
Embraer 175.
Yeah.
Okay, we're stepping it up. I feel like that's probably like a bunch higher, and then the power.
The numbers. I know those are kind of similar numbers, but they don't. Those you're like, oh, you started at the 2, now you're at the 5. Yeah, no, they're not related at all.
So as far as like positioning on the ground, like is there an exorbitant amount of more power when you're given this thing to throttle? Like, how do you start?
I honestly, the only thing that I would, they're just so different. Yeah. The only thing that's the same is the laws or the principles of how they operate. Okay. And the flight controls. You've got ailerons, elevator.
Wait, what was this?
So ailerons to roll it.
Ailerons?
Yeah.
Not gonna remember. Yeah. Okay.
So you've got all the same flight controls.
Gotcha.
And the same science keeps it in the air, but they're just so different. Mm-hmm. There wasn't too much that I would really compare, but flying the big jet's pretty easy. Honestly.
Okay. So like when I drive like a small car versus a big car, like I can tell like, oh, I got like a truck and a trailer. Like I feel like I'm bigger. What does it feel when you've got like 50 to 100 feet behind you? Like that's got to be wild.
Yeah. The biggest thing that I thought kind of threw me off a little bit is how much higher you are in the air. Okay. Like when my first landing, when we touched down, I'm like, we're on the ground already? I'm like, dude, I thought we were like 100 feet in the air. Yeah. You know what? Yeah. So just the height that you are off the ground when you touch down was kind of throwing me off a little bit, especially when you come in for landing, the plane's on an angle. Yeah. So the nose of the plane is just so much higher. Okay. When you're coming in on that angle. Mm-hmm. But yeah, not too much really transferred. So they're just so different.
So we say, or we get the call. We need 1,500 hours by this point. Where are we headed once we get those hours?
I don't know. I'm not gonna say the airline.
Yeah, no. Like,
just
because like, are we going to Hawaii? Are we going to
okay.
like location wise?
So the flying that I'm doing is just like, for example, my first trip, we went out to Detroit.
Okay.
Back to O'Hare. We went to Montrose, Colorado. We went to South Carolina.
Okay.
I mean, so it's all domestic. It's
Gotcha.
not. I'm not really going to be leaving the U.S.
So it's not like you're not doing a bunch of training flights. Like you're like, are these all just training flights, or are people actually your passenger?
Yeah. So my first time in the jet was flights with passengers. Normal flight.
Are you allowed to say that? So we had to edit that out. So like tomorrow, if like I feel a little bit of a hiccup when this guy's going forward, I'm gonna look over and like, Jessica, like this could be Jack. And I really like the guy, but so your first takeoff, it was just with a bunch of innocent people behind you.
Yeah, honestly, the sims are just so accurate.
Okay.
And the training's so good.
Yeah.
That by the time I flew the jet,
yeah,
I figured that I would be really nervous.
Yeah.
To fly a big jet with passengers on it for the first time, but I really wasn't.
Okay.
I mean, I was excited, and I'd say I was nervous to do well.
Yeah.
You know, I was nervous to perform well.
Yeah.
But I wasn't nervous about not having a good landing or screwing something up.
Okay. But
I
mean, your landing, you said like, hey, I thought like I was 100 feet in the air. Like, if I have a bad landing, I'd be like, oh, this guy's new. Like, how, like, was it a bad landing, or it was just like not perfect?
It was not perfect.
Gotcha.
My very first one.
Okay.
And you do have a radar altimeter that tells you how many feet off. Like you'll hear it telling you 50, 40. So I knew that we weren't 100 feet.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Just looking outside, I'm like, man, we're already touching down.
Okay. So I just assume everyone that's flying my plane has been doing it for like 50 years. That's just like, that just makes me feel good.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the thing is, it's not like a pilot flying at the airlines for the first time. They're not just hopping in and going by themselves.
Okay.
The captain that they're with is a captain that has a lot of seniority.
Okay.
And is specially picked to help train these new pilots.
Gotcha.
So you're even if you started making a mistake, this guy is going to see it right away and correct it.
Okay.
So
it's not like oops, like this has gone bad and now we lost a wing. Like it's just like everything is nice and easy.
Yeah, okay. Exactly. Like, and if the first officer, and I didn't do everything perfect on my flight, if I made little mistakes, the guy is obviously watching everything. Oh no, we're going to do it this way. Or it's like, all right, cool.
Yeah. How close are we to getting it to like autopilot as far as just like the process of taking off, going and landing?
That's a good question.
Yeah. I'm glad to hear that we're not. It's not like, oh yeah, we got AI, we're just throwing her in there. So I'm glad that's not happening.
Wait. I didn't understand your question.
Yeah.
I thought you meant how close am I to being comfortable as if I'm on autopilot.
Gotcha.
So you're asking, could you say it again?
When do you think, like, is artificial intelligence or just like cruise control being is that in planes, or we'll go cruise control first. Is there a button that you just like, let's keep this speed, and then you just fly and take a nap?
Well, there is autopilot.
Okay.
Right? Yeah.
But that's like cruise control in like 2006, where it's just like it doesn't do anything, it just like locks you in.
You can set everything up, turn on the autopilot, and some planes will land themselves. They can. Some planes can. Yeah.
Is that like super expensive planes? Is that
I don't know much about it. I don't know how often they use it either.
That's cool.
I mean, I don't know why you'd want to do that. Landing is the fun part anyways.
Okay.
But that is out there though.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Good to know. So, what are we doing other than flying? Are we hanging out with a bunch of pilots? You said you're in a bunch of hotels. Is that just because like you're working or like you're training? What's going on?
So for the airline training, once I got hired on at this airline, the first stretch of training, I was in a hotel for over a month and a half.
Okay.
And pretty much what a day would be like is you wake up early. I was waking up so that I could study an hour before class.
Gotcha.
You go to class and it's like 8 to, I don't know if we were doing 10 hours or not in class, but full days of class.
Are you falling asleep in class? I fall asleep if I was in class all the time.
I did not.
Wow.
No, it was like wide-eyed, got my notebook,
Yeah.
like writing.
Are we taking a bunch of caffeine? What's going on?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I had a lot of, I became very fond of Reigns and Bangs energy drinks.
Absolutely. Have you tried Ghost? My wife's trying to get me to stop, but it tastes phenomenal.
Which one?
The green apple right now is
I haven't had that
phenomenal.
one.
So green apple, whatever, strawberry, the blue one. But yeah, no, phenomenal. They just taste like Jolly Ranchers. Like, it's great. It's great.
But the so you'd have the full day in class, and then they'd send you home with homework, which was most of the time was reading. Yeah, a lot of reading.
Okay.
I'm a very slow reader. Yeah, so it would be enough reading to keep me up till 10 or 11 until I'd have to go to sleep because I've got to wake up early for the next day. Yeah, so.
So what are you learning in class that like? Is it so you study for a test or like you just need to have all this knowledge while you're up in the air?
So there were a lot of tests along the way. There were 1, 2, 3 written tests. So there was a week of training, written test, week of training, written test. Okay. 2 weeks of training, really big written test. Okay. And then and then after that, it was all simulator training and then performance-based testing, not really exams.
Yeah. So it doesn't sound like a lot of partying.
No. There was, well, I'll just put it. I'll put it this way. Yeah. For me, there was not a lot of partying.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you were focused. You're trying to get it done. This is what you're focused on.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. There were some that.
That were some people could just get away with it, like they can rock and roll, they're good to go.
Yeah, and I would have loved to be a little more social, and hang out. I actually got called out for being antisocial. They thought,
guys, I'm reading.
Yeah,
leave me alone.
Yeah.
So does that bring us up to present day, or like what did we miss in between?
Yeah, so I mean, I did all that training, and then pretty much I've been back home for about a month. Okay. So I was here for a week, did my first trip. Yeah. That was super cool. And then I ended up getting 2 weeks off. Yeah. Now coming up next Monday, I'll have my next trip. Okay. And there's still one more check that I have to do. I'm not official yet. I'm not just a normal line pilot.
Yeah. What does line pilot mean?
You're just a normal pilot working regularly. You're not in training anymore.
Go. So how? God, I remember you saying like, yeah, I think I'm gonna be a pilot. I think it's a good career path. It's gonna take 3 years, or I don't know if that's like what was when you set up this goal. Like how many years out where you're like, this is when I'm gonna get there?
Not as quick as I thought. Honestly, okay. I kind of I don't know where I found this information, but for the longest time, I thought I had to be 23 to go to the airlines. And I'm 21 right now. So I thought minimum of 23.
Just random Google information.
Yeah, it probably was Google.
That's hilarious.
And then it was like one day, I might have even been I don't know if I was instructing yet. But one day when I found out, I was like, wait, you only have to be 21? And then that totally changed the game for me there.
That's amazing. So it's just like, oh, we're 3-4 years out of this. Then we're like, we can do this right now.
Yeah.
So even having a goal that was 3 years out, how does it feel to be so close to it now?
Really good.
Yeah.
I mean, there's definitely been way more stress than I thought there'd be.
Okay.
Like throughout flying, everything has been fun.
Yeah.
It's been all bananas and pajamas. It's been awesome.
I have never heard anybody say that.
It's not mine. I got it from a movie, but
That's
it was
great.
it was
Okay.
it was all fun.
Yeah.
Like not really too much stress involved. Like it was hard work, difficult.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
I mean, not very much stress because throughout my training, I could train as much as I needed to get myself ready.
Right.
And then once myself and my instructor, once we agreed that I was ready for the test, you know, we'd schedule it and I'd go take it.
Gotcha.
With the airlines, you've got their timeline.
Yeah.
And I think I just put so much stress on myself to, like, cause I was thinking, like, man, what if I don't make it through this? Like,
Yeah.
and I'd get all these negative thoughts going through my head that I had to like shake. But, being committed to a timeline and just people, like, they refer to it as drinking from a fire hose of information. Like, just too much to process at once. Well, you can process it, but it feels like a lot at once.
So how did you deal with those like negative emotions? Like when they came, was it usually at night when you're just sitting there? Was it during the day? Like how did they show up?
It was like all the time.
Okay.
So it was cool because I think I made some big mental gains throughout the process.
Love it.
Like affirmations like crazy. I
Oh.
had so many note cards, and then throughout the day I'd think of a new one and I'm like, like mottos or like just
What's some good ones?
You're putting me on the spot.
Hey, take your time.
Usually
Take your
I
time.
have them in my back pocket. I don't right now.
Ooh.
But usually I carry them with me.
That's phenomenal.
And then throughout the day, like I'll feel that, or sometimes like I'll pull them out and read them. Hang on.
Damn, that's a good idea.
Okay. So
Let's hear it.
there was a card that I had. This one I read quite a bit before bed and in the morning. I think it was, I do not care what anybody thinks or says about me.
Yeah.
Part of that was going into class, I'd be insecure if people were doing way better than I was.
Right.
And like clearly they were getting it and I felt like I was behind.
Yeah.
Or if I was insecure about if the instructor thought I wasn't performing well. So that was kind of where that came from.
Okay.
My girlfriend thought it's because I was being bullied.
Yeah.
So she was laughing when she saw that.
You're getting bullied at pilot school?
One was, I'll do all you can, do the best you can.
Yeah.
Jim Rohn said that.
Okay.
But I really like that. Do all you can, do the best you can. Some of them were, one of them was, no fear of embarrassment or failure. I will work like an effing savage and leave no stone unturned.
Love it.
Win or die trying. Like, just
go.
so that's what I had a pile of these note cards that I was like going through.
So when you read those, like what changes? Is it like you're in a bad mood, or do you have the thoughts and like you're like, oh, you read this, like, hey, like kind of locks you in, or what goes on?
Yeah, like I had to constantly remind myself.
Yeah.
Because like there were times where I'd get, for no reason, like just so nervous about tests coming up.
Yeah.
I'd be like, what am I going to do when I get home if I fail? Like, what if I get sent home?
Yeah.
And then I'd start going through these scenarios, and then I'm like, whoa, dude, stop. Get that. Like, don't make that a reality. Like, just, you're going to be fine. Focus. So I would just constantly remind myself, or throughout the day, like that's why I'd have it in my back pocket. Like either feel it in my back pocket, and just that would just kind of remind me of like the person I want to be and how I want to deal with this. Or like sometimes like when no one's looking, I'd like read them. You know.
No, I think that's great. I feel like if there was, don't want to be that app guy, but whenever like you check in with yourself and be like, hey, am I like a 1 through 10? Am I like, are we doing good here? And then like you have to honestly check in, like, oh, like we're at a 5, like we're not doing great. And then, you know, like your affirmation comes up or you find it on the note card or whatever it is. I feel like that's a tool in your toolbox to just like improve what's going on, rather than the thoughts that snowball and go forward. Like if I didn't have Jess, like I would just be like sitting in a corner watching Netflix, being like, you're the worst. You didn't work out 3 times today. Like you're a terrible person. Eat more protein. Like, and then, like she's like, you did a lot today. Like you worked out twice. You hung out with your daughter. You ate 150 grams of protein. Like that, you're gonna be okay. You'll be fine. But no, I love that. That's fantastic. As far as either like relationships like with your family or other people, do you feel like those are improving? Like how do you develop those as you're doing all this?
I really didn't talk. I mean, well, I would call my girlfriend, like, but there wasn't like a lot of texting throughout the day.
Yeah.
And like you're
in school.
There wasn't a lot of communication. And social media, I've been off of social media for like almost 6 months.
Yeah.
By social media, I mean I still have YouTube.
Yeah.
I didn't shake that, but
YouTube's great.
But Instagram, Facebook, and Snapchat.
Okay.
I got rid of.
Yeah.
And that's all. I didn't have like Twitter or TikTok or anything. But I shook those to try and focus more.
Yeah.
So I didn't have any of those distractions. I really wasn't talking to people. But
yeah.
So relationships, it was like everything at home was just kind of on pause and frozen until I got back.
Yeah.
I mean, I just wanted to hit that training with everything I had.
Do you feel that like when you're back there now, you're a different person? Because I remember when we started working together, you're like, I know I should clean up after myself. Like me and my mom fight about doing the lawn and the dishes and like doing these kinds of things. Like, how do you feel like that stuff is now?
I am not the cleanest person. that's still a thing.
Yeah.
But as far as my relationship with the people,
yeah.
like my mom and I, we're the best of pals now.
That's awesome.
Like we hardly bicker. And
yeah.
If she's upset about how it used to go, is she'd be upset over those little things that you mentioned, like me being a slob around the house, and she'd get upset about that, and then I'd get upset, and then it just blows up.
Yeah.
Now, if there's any kind of tension between my mom and I just give her the biggest bear hug, and I hug her and she melts, and we both kind of settle down, and we're like, all right. Yeah. I'm like, you know what, Mom? I will go do that.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. No, that's fantastic. So as far as like looking forward and things on your plate, we have like the flying stuff. Do you have plans as far as like who as like a person you want to be, or like what's going on in your head there?
There's kind of like I mentioned earlier with me getting all these thoughts and ideas.
Yeah.
That's like every day for me right now. Like I love flying.
Yeah.
And I'm excited about this career.
Yeah.
And I'm excited that I've gotten here, but it still is a job.
Yeah.
Like it's not going to be something that I'm just so excited about and that's all I want to focus on.
Yeah.
Like I don't want to be the best pilot in the world. I want to be a great pilot, but it's not my goal to go down in history of pilots. You know, it's just not. But that's how I feel about racing still, and I'm not kidding. I think about that every day.
Okay.
Like it's there in my head, and I just keep thinking to myself, like, if that is the one thing, I haven't found anything that compares to it for how I feel about it and how much I like doing it.
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, you've got one life. Like, why aren't you doing that? Like, why don't you just find a way to get the money?
Yeah.
Like, and then I start getting all these ideas of how I could legally make the money to go do it.
What's the best legal way you've come up with so far?
I don't have any good one yet, but I'll give you a scenario of what would go through my head.
Yeah.
This would be an example. Like, oh well, you could. How about this? You should just get famous on get famous on social media, get a ton of followers, and sell some stuff, right? Yeah, that'll work. How are you gonna get famous? Do something crazy. Get in really good shape and I don't know, be the next David Goggins, something. And then another part of me will be like, maybe you find some YouTube video about, or like, I don't know, just anything. You get, I'll get these random ideas rolling, and then I wear myself out, and I'm like, man.
Yeah, for sure.
So as far as who I want to be, excellent question. Mm-hmm. I'm still trying to figure out what that is.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm not sure yet. I'm in the process of trying to figure that out.
How do you ask yourself that question? Like, does it look like as far as physically what you want to do, or what you do on like the day to day, or is it the people you want to be with? Like, how do you frame that question to yourself?
Yeah, I think mostly it's like how do I want to feel? Mm-hmm. I think lately that's been the biggest thing. Okay. Because I haven't really done anything fun in a long time. Like vacation I don't know if I've been on one in like the past 3 years. Like,
come to Montana, bring a tent.
Yeah. But I really don't have that much fun. Yeah. Like, I think I'm always just so focused on trying to, I really want to be rich. Yeah. Like that's definitely on the list, high up there. Yeah. And so I feel like just focusing on being disciplined and like the career, the flying thing, I just went towards that and try to be disciplined towards it. Yeah. But I really don't feel that good. Mm-hmm. So I think I want to feel stress-free. I want to be able to work really hard at the things I like. Yeah. But I want to feel good and be positive. Yeah.
Give me a scenario of like, that was fun. Like if I were to ask the question again, like, hey, what was the last thing you did for fun? What would be that thing?
I'm going to sound like a liar because I'm like, I don't do anything fun. But last weekend I went to a baseball game with my two of my cousins, their girlfriends, and then I brought my girlfriend as well. Yeah. And that was a blast. Okay. Had a couple drinks and all hung out. So that felt really good.
Okay. How do we step it up? What's above that? What needs to happen?
Here's the problem. Okay. When I get in those scenarios, like let's say I go to the ball game or I go out on the boat, I can't stop thinking about the work part of it. Yeah. Like the next milestone.
I have a person, I think it was like episode 134, Chris Free, but he's going through figuring it out for himself right now. He had to tell work, he was the owner or part owner. And I think it was like 15 years of him grinding. He's like, I would go on vacation. I would go to the Alps. I would go here. Like, we'd go to Paris. We'd go wherever it was. And he's like, I always thought about work and like didn't really enjoy it. So maybe I'll have him give you a call.
Did he figure it out?
He's figuring it out right now. Yeah. I think the last thing he was doing was reeling in a marlin for 2 hours in Puerto Rico or something like that. So I believe it looked like he had a pretty big smile on his face. Yeah. But yeah, I think last time I talked, he's like, I'm finally like looking forward and enjoying these things. So yeah, we'll have him call you.
That's funny. Cause it's like, where do you stop it? Cause I'm always thinking, what's the next thing? Well, I got to get my private pilot's license, my instrument, commercial. I can't play. Once I get my instructor certificate, then I can cool down. But once I got that, and then now that I'm home, like I've got my, line check coming up at the airlines and like I'm nervous for that, and I'm like, you know what, I'll let loose after that, but there's gonna be something after that that's gonna keep me from having fun that I feel like I have to put my attention towards.
Yeah. So what if you were to pick something, it would like, obviously not going to fly a plane, like that wouldn't be the let loose thing. What would be that let loose where you're like, this was, so I guess it's not so much the going and doing the thing, but it's being able to relax.
Yeah. Probably a vacation. Okay. But I'm really tight with money too. Cause I'm like, man, why would I spend that when I could invest it?
So how much would be enough where you're comfortable? Like $500 for like a week? Because you can do a lot of stuff with backpacking or thumbing around.
Yeah.
Actually, I don't think you can hitchhike anymore. Don't do that one. Don't do that one. We'll figure that out. So let's end it up with the same 2 questions as last time. Maybe a little bit different of an answers. What's your definition of health? Not necessarily the dictionary definition, but what is health to you?
The generic mind, body, spirit.
Okay.
Definitely. So, how you feel, how you take care of your body physically, and then your relationships, taking care of all of those 3 and having them on good terms. Okay. Essentially.
Awesome.
I'd say.
And then what's something that the people listening to the podcast would be able to take away as a positive?
I would say setting goals, definitely. I mean, I feel like with my personal experience, I haven't really been successful on the fun side and feeling good lately. But as far as accomplishing the goal, you know, if you're struggling to figure out what you want to do for a career or whatever, my advice to someone would be just find whatever it is you want to do. If you don't know what you want to do, that's your main goal in life. Find what it is. And then once you figure that out, don't worry about if you can do it or not. If you can figure that out later, just figure out the steps required to get there. Get your list together of steps, like what that requires, and just go to work on those, and just check those boxes.
There we go. Love it. Thanks for coming on the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.